AM 1220 KDOW and Money 2.0 present The Real Estate Report with Tony Mendez and Gordon Hines. Bay Area real estate and mortgage experts with over 25 years in the business. Now, with an in-depth look at this week's local and national real estate news and what it means for you. Your hosts, Tony Mendez and Gordon Hines.
Welcome into the Real Estate Report. I'm Tony Mendez.
And I'm Gordon Hines.
Thanks for being with us today. This is July 19th.
July 19th.
2018.
First quarter of the fiscal year of 2018-2019.
So it's the Real Estate Show. You can call it 800-516-1220, 800-516-1220, or shoot us an email, Tony@BayAreaLoanSource.com or Gordon@BayAreaLoanSource.com. We enjoy every email that we get, every scenario we get. We have a couple of them we're going to go over today. I'll tease you with a couple of them. One person wants to pay off their mortgage early, and there's an equity line strategy that's out there, a HELOC strategy where you borrow money from your equity line and you pay off your mortgage, and then you use your payroll to pay that down. It's kind of a weird scheme. I want to kind of clear the noise that everybody's hearing about this. There's certainly enough stories out there to talk about interest rates. Kind of in the back burner. Rates, 4.52% according to Freddie Mac. It's been like that for how long? Several weeks?
About past 3 weeks, even though we had a hike about two weeks ago.
Yeah, but we're the lowest we've seen going back to April as far as rates are concerned. So a lot of people talk about, is it a good time to lock? Is it a good time to talk about refinancing? You know, it's the lowest rates we've seen since April. Yeah, they were lower before April, but we had the yield peak over 3% at one point in the middle of the year, and now it's come back down. So, and that's all in the midst of the Fed going, we've raised rates. We have two more planned for the rest of the year. Then Trump comes out today and he's blasting it. And I was like, well, I don't really like what you're doing with these rate hikes. That's my Trump impression. But yet I support whatever you do.
Well, maybe that's why we had a reprieve in rates today, and because of his rhetoric. So maybe he should have more rhetoric as far as that is concerned. Maybe we see real estate rates come lower.
Yeah, then you start thinking about manipulation, and is it really a good, true number? Is capitalism working? And is the Fed really doing their job? And then, how do you really want your president meddling in your real estate affairs, even though he's a real estate developer?
He will, whether we want him or not, right? I mean, if you look at, that's what brings about much change sometimes. Sometimes it's just somebody just blowing the horn.
Controversy.
The whistle, and then all of a sudden people start to wake up and do a better job at what their assignment is. Sometimes it happens, sometimes it don't.
In fact, I think that was what his platform was. I want to wake up everybody. Again, you can call the show 800-516-1220. Some of the other stories we want to talk about. 20 cities with the greatest financial risk. These are the cities that have gained the most appreciation, or large cities in the United States since the Great Recession. America's 10 fastest sleepy suburbs. These are what they call burb booms. I like following these kind of stories because you get a chance to really see what's happening and where people are moving to and where they're growing across the United States. We'll hit that as well. The San Francisco housing crisis. And they're actually calling it a crisis now, and it has a lot to do with rents and the amount of residents there that actually rent, and then you have a percentage of homes that actually cover a larger amount of area compared to multifamily homes. So we'll talk a little bit about that. Let's get right into this, Gordon. And we want to talk about the LIBOR. The LIBOR might end. And what's going to happen to your mortgage rate when the LIBOR ends. I think that's going to be a really interesting story. In fact, I'm going to email these out, all of my stories, and I'm starting to do this today. All of the stories, and I do a lot of research. I pull up a lot of stories which I think a person who's interested in real estate, whether they're buying, whether they own, whether they're an investor, or thinking down the road for their kids, doesn't matter, should look at stories. They should follow the trends. And I hope that you're intelligent enough and wise enough to kind of figure out which makes sense and which doesn't, which is true and which is not. Is this baloney or not? But I'm going to start sending them out because I do a lot of research on these. You can always email me those or a question for those, Tony@BayAreaLoanSource.com. But I'd really prefer you sign up at our newsletter at BayAreaLoanSource.com, and I'll get all of these stories out and links and kind of tease each one of them. I'll try to get them out once a week after the show. With that said, there's this strategy out there, Gordon. It's called, I don't know if I want to say the name because I don't want people to really go there, but it's Velocity Mortgage. And what they're promoting is this new strategy on a method of paying off your mortgage early using an equity line. And essentially what you're doing is you're taking your paycheck. First, you have to have more income than you do debt. And then what you do is you take your salary, your actual paycheck. Let's say you get $5,000 a month and you put that and you pay your mortgage down. Then at the same time, you go out and you get an equity line, and then you take that equity line, and then you use that equity line to pay your actual mortgage payment and all of your other expenses. And then you do that you do this cycle over the next 4 months, and then after a 4-month period, you're back where you started, but you're $5,000 lower, kind of. My philosophy here is you're not actually making more money. In fact, I think the whole strategy here is for a lender or a bank to actually get you to buy their equity line in hopes that they're going to give you a debit card, and it's going to go right to the equity line in hopes that you are going to spend more on a regular basis and tap into that equity and end up with a higher balance than you actually start, and they make money on the interest. So my philosophy is, why are you going out getting a higher interest rate equity line to pay off your mortgage when you could easily do a biweekly payment or a once a year payment to do the same kind of thing?
Well, we're bullish on equity lines. We agree on that. We talk about it all
we
the
talk
time.
about the necessity of them.
So we're bullish on people getting equity lines, right? So I read and I listened to
but
what
don't put
you
words
were
in my
talking
mouth
about earlier about the equity lines and that strategy that particular company is preaching. I think it's a sophisticated formula. It's not for everybody, but there are some very astute, disciplined people out there that are financially savvy that can use that program to actually pay off their house early. It requires a lot of participation, a lot of energy. It's like day traders, for example, trade stocks. These guys got their finger on the trigger. They'll buy stock in an hour and sell it in 30 minutes later. And I can't do that as a regular person because I don't have my finger on the trigger finger and I don't have much time to dedicate. That formula seems the same way to me, if it's kind of looking at from the outside and without really talking to the company. But if you look at the mechanics of it, it's just another mechanism of tool to use to pay off your mortgage early.
Okay, if there's one good thing out of it, it gets you involved in your finances and you understand your finances a little bit better. But maybe you are that kind of person who goes, oh, I really need to get in touch with my finances. I don't have a budget. And then you start trying to figure out how to pay your mortgage down because of whatever reason that is. And there's not many, unless you're an investor, in my opinion. But then you really can't do it because you really aren't that good at finances to begin with. I don't think it's your entry way to start working a budget. I think but look, the only way, and there was a whole nother thing where you add a credit card that has like a 45-day free interest. And so what you're trying to do is keep as much money in the credit card at free interest and then pay that off with your next check and then use the equity line in the meantime. But you're never making any more. Here's the thing. You're not making more money than you were the day before you started this. Well, you're making $5,000 a month.
I don't think the object is to make more money. The object is to pay off your loan in an accelerated period of time, and that's what they're actually selling. It requires a lot of.
But it doesn't.
Due diligence. You got to stay on top of transfer the money, pay the money back. It's a lot of debt paying and pay attention. And
I can prove that it doesn't work if you want to shoot me an email, Tony@BayAreaLoanSource.com, if you're interested. I'm not saying, Gordon, that you're wrong. I'm just saying that I don't think it works because you're not making more money. You're just robbing Peter to pay Paul, and then you're paying Paul back.
You're not robbing. That's a bad term. You're borrowing from Peter.
You're borrowing from Paul to pay Peter, right. And then you're paying Peter back later with Paul, and you're just doing this Paul's cycle.
Money. It's a cycle money. You're cycling money in and out. You're taking one from one side of the equation.
You're taking money. You're taking debt.
Debt. You're moving debt around. So if you if you have 5 credit cards, as an example, you have 5 credit cards, and 3 credit cards have balances over $5,000, and 3 credit cards have balances of less than $600. You can pay those even though the rate's lower, you can pay the smaller debt off a lot faster. That's what it seemed like. You're borrowing money, and you're going to pay off the smaller debt. It's a lot easier if you focus on paying off the smaller debt, which is
and I understand that,
which is actually transferring into your long-term mortgage, which pays that debt off in bigger increments than if you do on an amortized schedule. That's what it sounds like they're saying.
Okay. What I'm trying to say is that if you have $100 and you put that $100 in, you put 25 here, 25 here, and 50 here, you still have $100. And let's just say that's debt. That's all I'm saying. And then the other factor here is your income. Unless your income changes, it doesn't matter where your debt is, in my opinion.
Formula has nothing to do with income. It's just
It
a matter
does.
of
That's
moving-
all it is, because your income's the only thing that pays off that debt.
Well, your income is proportionate to that debt. If it's $1 million loan or if it's a $100,000 loan, you're making less money.
Okay.
So
We're
it
going to
looks at it.
disagree a little bit on
No
this. My whole philosophy here is that you're not making any more money. You're not owing any more money or less money. You're just shuffling it around for the sake of getting an equity line so that somebody else can make money off of you on the interest. That's my opinion. You can shoot me an email, Tony@BayAreaLoanSource.com, and I'll be glad to prove it wrong. And I'll shoot you this email again. Sign up at our newsletter. I'll start sending these out. U.S. weekly jobless claims hit a 48.5-year low. Fantastic. We're on all cylinders right now.
Well, that's the reason why the Fed chairman said earlier this week that the Fed does plan on raising rates at least two more times this year. They're going to keep raising rates to offset and fight off inflation. And I guess, as we talked earlier, if the market's going to change in time, which it will, in order to reduce rates, you have to have a nominal rate to reduce. And that's what we think they're actually accomplishing.
And that's
right
why
now.
Trump's pissed off. He's pissed off because he's in office and he wanted to grow the economy, and the Fed sitting there saying, well, we're going to slow the economy down. I mean, that's essentially what's happening. And whether or not you think that's the right thing to do, someone smarter than me is saying that we should slow it down. And I hope that Trump is trusting and that's what he kind of says at the end. He just basically says, I don't like it, but you do what you do because I trust you. But that's fantastic. We're seeing jobless claims hitting 48 years old. That's 1969, everyone. 1969, we haven't seen this low of jobless claims. To me, that shows, and there is another story here that we're talking about jobs. In fact, I didn't print that one out. It's about how the East Bay is rocking right now. I think they grew jobs in the last 3 years faster than any other part of the peninsula, the South Bay, the East Bay, and what they call the Tri-City area, Dublin, I think Pleasanton.
Tri-Valley. Not Tri-Valley.
Tri-Valley.
Yes. Got that out the way.
Okay, get that out of the way. Okay. So we're going to disagree on HELOCs and Tri-Valley, Tri-City. But it's growing. Still trouble with affordable housing, but we see it here in the Bay Area firsthand. Unemployment is super low. We have the lowest unemployment in the state. We average well below the national average of, what is it right now, 3.9?
I think a little higher.
3.8? 4?
Yeah, 4. I think
But we know where we're,
4.1,
right.
4.2.
And we're below that, which...
and we're below that because we have a diverse employment market. We have many different sectors that feed in different jobs. We're not just one industry strong. I mean, we got the valley, we got all kinds of things going on all around the state, that's why the economy is so strong and so robust here in California.
I think it's also a case of industry moving to where the people can be more affordable. And half of that story is going to come up later about where are the hottest suburbs within an hour of large cities. And I really like this story because as an investor, I look at this as trends. Not many of these cities are on the list that I had 10 years ago, but this might be the new list, or it might be the beginning of my new list, which is another thing that I could always email you. You can shoot an email to me, Tony@BayAreaLoanSource.com, or Gordon at BayAreaLoanSource.com. If you side with the equity line strategy, you can email him. We'll be back after this break here on AM 1220 KDOW. Again, that's Tony Mendez, Gordon Hines, and this is the Real Estate Report. We'll be right back.
This is Money 2.0 on AM 1220 KDOW.
Welcome back into the Real Estate Report. I'm Tony Mendez.
And I'm Gordon Hines.
Thanks for being with us today.
We're here every Thursday, 6 to 7, drive time special, I'd like to call it.
Go to our website, BayAreaLoanSource.com. I'm going to start sending out links of all of the stories that I do all this research on. You can go to the website, BayAreaLoanSource.com, and sign up for the newsletter. America's top 10 fastest growing suburbs. They aren't sleepy anymore. I love this story. It's all about what they call a burb boom. Realtor.com data team, they set out to identify the top nation's most sought-after burbs. A fast-growing suburb gets that way by attracting builders, working up a business case for people to come in and build their community, blah, blah, blah. To find the county's fastest-growing suburbs, we analyzed more than 7,000 zip codes, focusing on ones outside a city's limits and within an hour commute in a rush hour to a center near the nearest urban area. They also calculated home appreciation over the last 3 years, and the increase that will happen over the next 3 years to follow. As an investor, Gord, I kind of know your answer on this, but let's say you lived in Frisco, Texas at one point, or Waukee, Iowa, and you go, oh my gosh, that's my hometown, or I have a sister that lives there. Maybe I buy investment property there because I'm looking at, let's see, Frisco, for example. Their median home price there is $474,000 right now. Their 3-year price appreciation was 21%. Their 3-year home listing increase is 177%, and its metropolitan area is Dallas, Texas. Would you consider being an investor there for the pure purpose of speculation on a story like this?
Well, it depends on what I'm speculating on. What's the basis of my speculation? What's the underlying value? If it's employment and employment centers, I said yes. It could be colleges. A lot of times colleges, big colleges that are outside big cities, housing tend to be very, very attractive and scarce. And you find a lot of homes, a lot of college towns have very, very high home prices. Like if you go down to, for example,
especially if there's jobs around there.
Yeah, if you go down to Fresno, I had some property down in Fresno, and if you were close to the campus, the properties are more for a lot more than if you were further from the campus. So a lot of times, those are things you have to look at. There got to be some attraction, some underlying basis to make you speculate in order for you to take your money there to invest as an investor.
Number 1 was Apex, North Carolina, metropolitan area, Raleigh. So you got Research Triangle there. I love this one. $494 median home price, a little high, but the 50% 3-year appreciation. Florida's on this list. Ponte Verde, near Jacksonville. Jacksonville's median home price, I was surprised to see it was in the 450s, 460s. But they have had 13.4% increase there. Scottsdale was number 4, but that's Scottsdale, Georgia. $404,000 median home price, 207% 3-year price appreciation. Lakewood Ranch, Florida, that's 5.7%. But then you have Arabi, Louisiana, 3-year price appreciation, 86%. Manor, Texas, 23%. Aurora, California, near Denver, that's a 19.4. I love Denver. I think Denver's a pretty cool town. But a lot of people are moving there. A lot of young people are moving there. So it's not I'm not going to say young people aren't sophisticated, but I think it's going to take some years before you start seeing, more single family housing going up. Right now it's mostly multifamily. Then you got Waukee, Iowa, and then Nolensville, Tennessee. Nolensville, Tennessee, $511,000 median home price, 34% 3-year price appreciation. So, I guess you hit a home run in some of these cities if you were there already.
And I think if you go back and look at, once again, if you look at all those cities, there got to be some attraction there that's making those cities go up. I'm surprised Stockton is not on that radar. Stockton has a lot of centers, for example.
They just didn't see the appreciation there, though.
UPS and also Amazon is moving a big distribution center there. So once again, anything around employment, Stockton is within an hour of the metropolitan city, Oakland, San Francisco. I'm surprised that they didn't make the list.
They're on the list of and it's another Realtor.com data that they survey that they did, and it's on the searches that people do online. So Stockton shows up on the online searches, but maybe not. That doesn't translate into higher appreciation. But I like following these lists. It's a different list than we've had over the last 10 years, and I think it's it's a sign of people saying, I'm either tired of the downtown traffics and headaches of moving around, and there are some jobs, there are some, maybe I'm okay with the commute now, and I want a bigger house, and I want a yard, and maybe these are booming communities because they're better schools, or they're just laid out better. You know what I mean? Just the amenities might be there that you just don't see in the urban part of the city.
Well, how about this? The mature people, they want to move out to the suburbs. The younger people want to congregate in the cities. How's that?
Speaking of which, we're going to talk about millennials when we come back. Almost 70% of millennials. Okay, this is another survey. This was done by, I'll get that as Bloomberg. Who is this done by? Bank of the West, I think. 70% of millennials regret buying their homes, and here is why. We'll talk about that when we come back after this break. Overspending on their down payment and where they got it was the number one reason, but we'll come up with some more when we come back after this break. I'm Tony Mendez. That's Gordon Hines. This is the Real Estate Report. You can always go to our website, BayAreaLoanSource.com, and sign up for our newsletter.
This is Money 2.0 on AM 1220 KDOW.
Come with me now. Come with me now.
Welcome back to the Real Estate Report. This is Tony Mendez and Gordon Hines. Thank you for listening. We're here every Thursday as we talk, enlighten you with real estate facts, what's going on in the Bay Area, and all the different counties around it. So, once again, always thank you for listening. We love your emails. We're going to get to some emails right now. Tony, what do we have as far as a great email that we have coming for this week?
Well, it's pretty simple. Interest rates gone up a little bit. So we got Bill. He's out of Berkeley. He wanted to know about paying points when you do your mortgage. I have a pretty simple formula for buying points or paying points, that is. If you can keep the loan, first of all, paying a point will lower your interest rate, right? So your lower interest rate, yes, your loan amount might go up because if you're in a refinance and you'll have a higher balance, but that lower interest rate will give you lower payment. So what you do is you take that payment difference and you divide it into this. And if you plan to keep that loan beyond that what they call a payback period, in a lot of cases it's 48 months or 55 months, and you can easily figure it out by just doing that calculation, then you will save money every month after that. On a refinance, though, a lot of people don't realize that if you're using your equity to pay for those points by just taking that slightly higher loan amount, you're not actually spending it out of your pocket. So you get the savings immediately. The only way you would assume those costs for those points is if you sold or refinanced before that payback period.
Well, I tell people sometimes don't get hooked up on points. Sometimes actually buying points is like subsidizing your actual mortgage payment, believe it or not, at the end of the day. Typically when you buy it, the more points you pay, your rate's going to be lower. Or sometimes there are some people where the margins are just that tight. For other words, in desktop underwriting, we have to get your back-end ratio under 50. And sometimes the only way to do that is by lowering your interest rate. And hence, lowering your interest rate is going to cost you. You have to buy that rate down in order to get that rate under that balance under 50. And it's just a necessity for you getting what you want to get to. Sometimes don't be so hung up on what the actual cost is. Just look at the benefit. Yeah,
and in the past, we rarely had this question because a lot of the large banks were not, they wouldn't even do it. Now we're starting to, points that is, they would just they say, okay, this is your rate, this is your cost. They usually show no points, sometimes in a lot of cases no origination at all, and it's all built into the rate, so the lender's making the money in the back end. You don't even see it. The back end meaning they're making it as what they call a yield spread or a margin or whatever you want to call it, from a percentage of the loan amount in the back side of the deal that you don't see. Whereas a point is something that you pay up front. So, and lenders kind of shied away from that. Nowadays, we're starting to see it more. We get a lot of people contact us and say, hey, I got this quote from so-and-so. Can you what do you think of this? Can you beat it or whatever? And we're seeing more points showing up. And a little bit of that has to do with the fact that rates have gone up and lenders want to show you a lower rate. If you're paying points, you're not just paying points, you're paying points to get a lower rate. It's my philosophy that rates always trump loan amount to a certain point. So no pun intended, but down to a certain level, it'll make sense. And then it just gets too expensive. And this is where we call kind of the sweet spot for mortgages. That's why when I advertise every show, the Freddie Mac weekly survey showing 4.52% for the 30-year fix, it comes along with points, like 0.4 points. And that's an average of what we're seeing. So it translates into dollar amount. Yes, you can cover it. But on a purchase, though, I almost look at it as the reverse. So if you get let's say you can get 4.5%, 4.52%, and you pay 0.4 points, or you take 5% and you get more closing costs paid for on a purchase. And then if rates dip, you haven't paid points in that to do that refinance later, and then you can use the equity this time instead of money out of your pocket. So a lot of cases, every case is going to be different. I recommend, Bill, that you weigh both sides. If somebody's offering it, look at multiple rates and different costs and see which payment works out best. And if you have room in your refinance to add the points to your loan amount, maybe it makes sense based on your time frame at that house. Send your emails, Tony@BayAreaLoanSource.com. I'll be glad to look at them. It's Tony@BayAreaLoanSource.com. We'll be right back after this break on the Real Estate Report.
This is Money 2.0 on AM 1220 KDOW.
Hello, I'm not where I'm supposed to be. I hope that you're missing me, cause it makes me feel young.
Welcome back into the Real Estate Report. I'm Tony Mendez.
And I'm Gordon Hines.
I wish I could listen to that whole song. Makes me chill out just a little bit. 70% of millennials regret buying their homes. Gordon, number one reason, overspending on their down payment. And it's not really overspending. In fact, they break it down. They say it's not overspending on their down payment. It's that they dipped into their retirement accounts to pay for their homes. Roughly 40% of the people that said that they regret said this is their reason is overspending on their down payment. But you know what's just funny is that nationally, down payments have actually started going down as on an average. So I think it's like 8%, or I could look it up, but it's like 8 or 9%. It's not much. So, and then you have a median home price in the United States.
Well, let me take that apart. How can someone overspend on a down payment? Explain that to me. How could you overspend on a down payment?
That's what I'm saying is that they're regretting where they got it.
Okay, but if you leverage, it's all leverage, right? You leverage money from yourself and your 401k to increase your down payment, to make the housing payment affordable, subsidized housing, using your own money to subsidize housing. How could that be overspending your down payment if you know that property value is increasing higher than your 401k is increasing? So, I mean, I'm confused about that one, but everybody's got their own opinion.
Bailey from Bank of the West says borrowing from retirement may make sense in special circumstances, but it's definitely not a recommendation. To keep from getting squeezed, think about what you can afford as a monthly payment. Don't forget including taxes and insurance, which is kind of the other part of the why they are regretting buying is underestimating the ongoing cost of the house. That includes taxes and insurance and maintenance and so on. I was looking at some other numbers. I think on average in the United States, it's like $16,000 a year to maintain your property on average.
That's the biggest cost I always talk to people about when they're looking to go from long-term tenancy, especially long-term tenancy to home ownership, is most people really, really underestimate the cost of home ownership. You know, a lot of times is when you're a tenant, you know, like we always talk about this on the show, toilet gets clogged or something breaks, you call the landlord. However, when you're the landlord, you're the homeowner, you have to find a way how to pay for these things. It could be a major expense. Water heater goes out. It could be $700 or $800 that you can't budget for, you don't have, but you have to have a water heater because you need hot water. And you got to go out and, you know, beg, scrape off or pray to get this money in. And it's an expense that most people are not prepared for. Roof is $5,000 if the roof starts leaking. You try patching, but at some point in time you need a roof. And that's why it's very, very important.
That's the third.
Warranties and all these options that are available.
And that's the third reason. And before I start the third reason, 68% of millennials are buying houses sight unseen. So the number 3 reason is they're settling for quite something that's not what they thought, meaning that 1 in 5 said they were frustrated by damages they found after moving in. So if you're doing 68% of millennials are buying homes sight unseen, and then you're going to complain about a damage that you didn't know until you moved in, maybe more people should start seeing the house before you buy it, kind of.
I mean, that happens. I think buying a house sight unseen is a method for a true aristocrat, a true pioneer, or somebody, or a professional that's been doing it for a long time. You know, buying a house sight unseen, I don't recommend, especially if you're a first-time home buyer, because there are many pitfalls that all the great deals you think you own. It's like buying a house at the auction or at the foreclosure steps. A lot of pitfall that you don't have access to until you actually own it. 2/3
of home buyers, millennials, reported compromising on some sort of home characteristic, according to a survey that was done by National Association of Realtors. I find that, you know, about 4 years ago, right, when we started really kicking heels in our recovery, we started seeing homes under power lines and homes on corners, and, you know, maybe some home with one less room than they wanted. And people were buying these and they were spending, and it was driving up home prices and more and more and more. Now, yeah, Grant, they made some, you know, they're doing okay. Appreciation went up because, you know, who knew we were going to have shortage of inventory and driving up prices for every type of property. But, you know, maybe they figured they wanted that extra room, and maybe they should have looked a little bit more and spent a little bit more. And then maybe they dipped more into their retirement and they felt even worse. So it could be a combination of everything. My opinion on buying real estate is to do a lot of research and buy what you want: quality, location, amenities, the style of the house. And then, you know, financing is going to fit in there, affordability, and your long-term goal. If you're just buying on speculation, I look what happened the last time. All right. We got into trouble because of speculation. That was one of the biggest reasons.
Well, I mean, it's sound advice, but unfortunately, during the time that we're in right now, as far as what real estate has gone, you don't get that many options anymore. If you want to become a homeowner, you
Gotta move fast.
You got to move fast. Put
Yeah.
your best foot forward, and it goes to the highest bidder.
Your realtor calls you
So
and
a
they
lot
say,
of times is, we see a lot of things right now in theory, but where we are right now in today's marketplace, you just got to make a quick decision, become a homeowner, and hopefully you made a good decision.
ongoing story. We know millennials have a little bit of a tough break right now. They're carrying a lot of student debt. In fact, there was another article I had as well about the amount of student debt that millennials are carrying, how student debt loans are making some people abandon their dreams. Many people take on student debt so they'll later be able to work in their desired field, but after graduation, those monthly bills can have more negative effects. So I'm not saying they have a short stick right now or handed a short stick, but it definitely takes a little bit more planning. Gordon, I know you wanted to hit this email real quick.
Yeah, I'm seeing massive. One thing that we see a lot of is hard to compete with. We see massive student debts, and some of these customers are looking to buy houses. Anyway, there's a great email from Charles. Charles is in Berkeley. Charles and his wife bought a house 3 years ago. His parents live with them. Charles and them are looking to move his parents into a retirement home in Arizona. But now that monies have changed, they're figuring out that they can't afford the place they wanted to put their parents. So Charles was asking me, what do you think about the new concept of housing as far as auxiliary housing? He'd like to build something in the backyard for his parents. And actually, it's a great article in this month's Realtor magazine. The July-August method has a couple similar to that down in Santa Clara, California. Almost the same identical story. Have some older parents, and instead of moving them to a retirement village, they're actually going to build an auxiliary house in their backyard for their parents. It's just a lot cheaper with additional monies coming in from the parents that can actually afford this thing. Most state of California has passed this rule. As long as it's owner occupied within certain distance from transportation, you can actually do this, and this is actually a good thing. It's picking up popularity in most cities around here, beginning to grasp onto this concept about auxiliary housing.
I should know this, but can you do a renovation loan to add an auxiliary unit? I don't think you can. I think it has to be an existing structure.
Yeah, it has to be an existing structure. A lot of times you can turn a detached garage into
Maybe,
it.
possibly.
But from building from the foundation up, no.
If you have a question about that, you can always email us, Gordon at BayAreaLoanSource.com or Tony at BayAreaLoanSource.com. We'll come back after this break. Again, I'm going to send this email out with all of our stories. Go to our website, BayAreaLoanSource.com, sign up with our newsletter.
This is Money 2.0 on AM 1220 KDOW.
Welcome back into the Real Estate Report. I'm Tony Mendez.
And I'm Gordon Hines.
Thanks for being with us. A lot of stories out there, Gordon. I'm going to let you pick which one to finish off on. Life after the Bay Area, fleeing residents, heartbreak and joy. I find this story to be very interesting. Of the Bay Area residents who are still here, nearly half of them say that in a survey recently said that they would plan to move out of the region in the next few years. This, according to Tim, a dispatcher for Macy's Movers, whose parent company is Atlas Movers, said that it's been so intense. He's never seen anything like this in the last 25 years. There's a nationwide, they did a blackout for all out-of-state moving in California, a nationwide shortage of truck drivers and trucks. So many people are moving. We're losing people out of the state right now. We can talk about that. States are trying to sue the U.S. over the state and local tax deduction cap. We can talk about that if you want. Interest rate hikes. I think we talked about LIBOR. This is an interesting one. What happens to your rate if LIBOR goes away? So there's a group of financial experts are scheduled to meet on Thursday to make a funeral arrangements for LIBOR. LIBOR is the underlying rate or index for people who are in adjustable rate mortgages, including other kind of commercial loans and things like that. 20 cities facing the greatest financial risk. These are cities who've seen the most appreciation since the Great Recession. Detroit, San Jose, Cape Coral, Florida, all of these are in like 170, 191, 193%. Reno, Nevada's on there. San Francisco, Stockton, 141%. So you were just talking about how they should have hit that list of as far as growing suburbs. Stockton's on that list with 141%. A lot of Florida ones. Orlando, Punta Gorda, Palm Bay, Tampa, Lakeland. The other ones are in California. Modesto.
Well, those are all the places that
Riverside.
that were the hardest hit after the boom. So a lot of times that's why you always got to qualify the information. But going back to the story about the LIBOR, most people don't realize on adjustable rate mortgage, there's three things that are permanent and adjustable rate. You have the index, the start rate, and of course the margin. LIBOR is one of the indexes that were used. Many years ago, there were many more indexes. Many indexes have gone away. There used to be an index that most of the savings loans used to use called the cost of funds, which is the 11th district cost of funds, and that went away. And most of the indexes, when they go away, they actually go back to use a benchmark, which is 1-year Treasury. And that's probably, so if I'm hearing this LIBOR going away, we're probably going to end up with maybe just two indexes: the prime, which is the Fed rates you use, and the prime, and the Treasury is probably the only index going to be actually around if LIBOR actually goes away.
So I find it interesting. I want to do a little bit more research on this, and you're welcome to send me an email if you're interested in that story on what actually happens if that new index that you're using is higher or lower. Do you follow your caps? Caps are the most that your rate can change on a yearly basis, or in the beginning, or at total. And what happens? I think that's going to be very interesting. I just saw this story today, and I think that, right now the 3-month LIBOR, which is at 2.44%, most people are on the 1-year LIBOR. I think it's around 2%, maybe a little bit higher. That's come up considerably, but they're just saying it's not reliable anymore, and that's one of the reasons why they want to get rid of it. But there are plenty of stories to talk about. This is a very interesting time in real estate. A lot of people think we are in a bubble. We know there's a lot of stories out there about the commercial industry right now being in a bubble. Does that translate into the residential? I don't know, not yet. But then you got, Russia, for example. They're no longer our largest debt carrier. They are buying more gold. What does that mean? So very interesting time to start thinking about like where we are in our economy. Trump's, kind of got this dual thing going, whether or not he approves or disapproves of rate hikes, and and his ego and so on.
Well, there are a lot of people out there that make a lot of money off of selling what we call wolf tickets. If you go back to when we changed over 1999 to 2000, a lot of people made a lot of money in that Y2K massacre that never took place. So you always got to be careful of the people that talk for money. Except us. We give you the facts, just the facts, ma'am, the old dragnet routine.
We're here for your second opinion. You can always shoot us an email, Tony@BayAreaLoanSource.com or Gordon@BayAreaLoanSource.com. Go to our website for our newsletters. I'm going to start sending out these stories and links at BayAreaLoanSource.com. Thanks.